Good morning. Well, this morning I have a message that I got from Our Lady last night, and it's about spiritual war, the war we're in. My children, you live in a time of very great spiritual war between heaven and hell, and more specifically, between Satan and I. God has chosen me for this time to lead the heavenly army that will crush the head of Satan. As always, my children, I do not recruit the souls whom you would expect. My heavenly army of souls looks weak and foolish in human terms, and yet these are the very souls whom God uses so very powerfully. Remember, my children, you are in a spiritual battle and not an intellectual battle or battle of physical strength. This is why my chosen souls are souls of prayer. They do not need to be either the most educated or the most strong, but they do need to be the most prayerful and brave. Pray, 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 my children, and let your prayer and suffering ascend to heaven like the smell of sweet smelling roses. The tone of that message when I received it yesterday was one of total and utter sincerity, but also it was a message of Our Lady really defending and protecting her army, her chosen souls, so to speak. And she starts off by saying, we're in a great spiritual war between heaven and hell, and more specifically between Satan and I. And Our Lady isn't afraid to name Satan for what he is. She doesn't say, well, she might say sometimes, but today she didn't say evil or badness or something. No, she says Satan, because it's important for us to realize that he is a being, a person, an entity, not some sort of a malevolent force or some sort of abstract evil. No, we're talking about an actual person being in the same way that Our Lady is a person. Our Lady is a creature of God. And so the battle is between Satan and her. She goes on to speak and say, though, that God has chosen her at this time to lead the heavenly army. In other words, she knows well that the battle is between Satan and God, but God has chosen her for this time, so she, if you like, is God's leader of the army. So in no way, shape or form is Our Lady in any way pretending to be God. She is 100,000% aware that she is being used by God. But because she's been used by God and she's been given this responsibility, it's up to her now to recruit, if you like, souls and spiritual warriors, so to speak, for her mission. And that's why in places like Medjugorje, she's coming, because she's calling people. It's obviously God calling people through her, but she's doing the calling, so to speak. And so she says, I do not recruit souls who you would expect. So obviously, if we heard of there was a war going on tomorrow and souls are being recruited, we'd expect it would be probably a whole load of good men in good health, fit, strong, and ferocious or something. I don't know. So Our Lady is saying she does not recruit the souls you would expect. My heavenly army of souls looks weak and foolish in human terms, and these are the very souls whom God uses so powerfully. So, in other words, if you go into your local Catholic church, or maybe if you go to Medjugorje, you're not going to get a whole load of young, fit, handsome men, or whatever, the same way as if you went into an army camp. In fact, you're more likely to find a demographic of older people, often more women than men, and often people with rosaries, often people with funny clothes, maybe, or whatever. Total and utter opposite of what you would sort of expect if someone said to you the word army. But she said, remember, my children, you are in a spiritual battle and not an intellectual battle or a physical battle. So, in other words, if you were going in to a physical battle, well, of course, you'd be looking out for people who are physically strong. If, as I said, it was some sort of an intellectual debate, you'd probably be looking for people that look like they've got a PhD or a doctor or a master's or something like that. But no, Our Lady is saying the battle we're in is a spiritual battle. And so Our Lady isn't concerned so much about people's physical strength or how intellectually smart they are, because it's a spiritual battle. What she needs from souls is spiritual strength. And this is why she says, this is why my chosen souls are souls of prayer. Because it's only in prayer that people grow spiritually strong, the same way as people go physically strong from the gym or whatever, or people grow intellectually strong from years and years of study or whatever, but it's from prayer and fasting and the sacraments, suffering. It's from prayer that inside people's spiritual muscles and resilience and spiritual authority, that's where that grows and nowhere else, to be honest. So they do not need to be either the most educated or the most strong, but they do need to be the most prayerful and brave. So she's not saying they need to do nothing. In fact, the opposite. Nope, the education thing, you don't need to be the smartest. Now, don't get me wrong. Our Lady isn't saying that that she's recruiting people with nothing at all between their ears, but she's saying people don't need to be the smartest. Same thing. She's not saying that she's recruiting people that can't lift a clip from the ground. They're so weak. However, they don't need to be the most physically strong or even in the best of health either. But they do need to be the most prayerful and most brave. And that's why when we look at our Catholic Church, the Church is full of the lives of saints and mystics. And some mystics, for example, Marthe Robin, she comes to mind. She was 50 years paralyzed on a bed, lived totally and exclusively from the Eucharist, and her life was a life of total prayer. So that's an example, for example, of a soul who basically simply prayed, but for all worldly purposes, she was totally useless. And if she lived today, people would probably think it would be a good idea to give her a tablet and kill her off in the name of mercy killing or whatever. But Our Lady looks at the prayer. And so there's people of any age, they might be suffering, they've got ailments, they've got disabilities, who knows, but they're offering that to Jesus. These people, they pray umpteen rosaries, they offer to Jesus, they go to very regular mass and confession, adoration. Their houses, if you visit them, are little shrines of prayer. And these people are Our Lady's spiritual warriors that even from their bed where they seem to be doing nothing, in their prayer, they're actually fighting demons and all sorts of stuff, and they're winning great victories for Jesus and Mary. So pray, 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 my children, and let your prayer and suffering ascend to heaven like the smell of sweet-smelling roses. Now, what a wonderful image that our prayer and suffering ascend to heaven like the smell of sweet-smelling roses. In other words, through our prayer, through our suffering, we can imagine Our Lady collecting it. Imagine like the honeybees. Honeybees, they can go off and they can collect the pollen and then they can make the honey. We can't make the honey, but when the honey is ready, we could scoop in and we can get it and it can be given, it can be sold if you like. Well, it's the same thing through our prayers and through our sufferings. We offer all those to Our Lady, and then Our Lady is able to use those sufferings united with Jesus, and she's able to use those to free souls from purgatory. She's able to use those to free demonic bonds. She's able to use those for all sorts of purposes. Maybe somebody at the other end of the world is in desperate need of prayer, and thanks to your prayers and your sufferings last night in your bed, maybe that person, their life is saved or something. I don't know. So Our Lady has absolutely crazy value in our prayer and the sufferings that we offer, and that's why she said it ascends to heaven like the smell of sweet-smelling roses. So what could be more wonderful than to offer Our Lady our prayers, our sufferings, even though it's not easy or pleasant. Let's be honest about it. We'd all much prefer, at a human level, to be out with our friends and having a laugh. Suffering and prayer is very hard work. Anybody that's involved in spiritual warfare or has been in the ministry of prayer, etc., they will not lie to you. It is not easy, and anybody that tells you it is, well, they're not being genuine, because it just quite simply is not. So there you go. So anyway, let us today be Our Lady's spiritual warriors. Let us keep on going. Let us keep on trusting. Let us not get discouraged if we're not the smartest, if we're not the most intelligent, if we're not the this, if people mock us, they laugh at us. Who cares? If Our Lady has recruited us, well, then we're part of her army, and that's all that matters. So on that note, let us keep on smiling with the joy of Jesus, the joy of Our Lady. Let us keep on going, keep on offering, keep on trusting, knowing that we are not the army leader. Our Lady's the army leader. She's in charge. We have to do our bit, and afterwards we have to offer that to her and trust in her that she has got the rest in hand with Jesus. So thank you for watching, and have a great Sunday.